Pestilence Parker. In a world of alternate realities, one version of Spider-Man turns into something dark and terrifying. Pestilence Spider-Man is a version of Peter Parker, who's been corrupted by the villain Apocalypse. Instead of using his powers for good, Peter becomes one of Apocalypse's horsemen, like other heroes who've been turned into villains before him. Imagine Spider-Man, but with 4 arms, hunting down victims and sucking the marrow from their bones. It's a brutal twist on our friendly neighborhood hero, and Deadpool and Cable are the ones who stumble into this nightmare while traveling through the multiverse. Pestilence Spider-Man quickly traps Deadpool with webbing from all 4 of his arms and legs, proving to be a real challenge. Despite Deadpool's usual ability to handle tough situations, Pestilence's speed and strength give him a hard time. Deadpool even gets a threat from the former hero: "I'll suck the marrow out of your bones." But with Cannonball's help, the team gets the upper hand. Cannonball, fast and surprising enough to get past Spider-Man's senses, catches Pestilence off guard. Still, they don't entirely defeat him. Instead, they escape by activating a body slide, leaving the corrupted Spider-Man to rule in his twisted world. It's a dark twist on the hero we all know and love, but thankfully, it's not our world. Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider is a unique version of Spider-Man with a haunting backstory and a quest for redemption. In one alternate universe, Peter Parker's life takes a darker turn. When his Uncle Ben is attacked, he survives but becomes bitter and twisted. Instead of becoming a hero, he helps Peter develop his powers incorrectly. Together, they begin capturing Spider-Man from across the multiverse, absorbing their powers to become stronger. Eventually, this version of Peter, known as the Amazing Spider, tries to absorb 616 Spider-Man's powers, but dies. His soul is trapped in hell, but he eventually returns as Ghost Spider, now with powers similar to Ghost Rider. Determined to find redemption, he uses his new abilities for good. Meanwhile, in another universe, Gwen Stacy, known as Spider-Gwen, becomes her world's Spider-Woman. In this version, Gwen gets bitten by the radioactive spider, not Peter. After Peter's tragic death, Gwen becomes the hero, taking on the name Ghost Spider when she teams up with the Spider-Man of Earth 616. Gwen's powers are similar to Peter's, but she also bonds with the Venom symbiote, giving her even more strength. From a tragic start to a path of redemption, Ghost Spider's journey is a powerful reminder that even the darkest past can be overcome. Man-Spider. Man-Spider is one of the creepiest versions of Spider-Man, where Peter Parker becomes more spider than man. It all starts when Peter is injected with a drug meant to boost performance, but with a terrifying side effect. The drug makes his spider side grow stronger, turning Peter into a giant, monstrous spider with an insatiable hunger for people. This version of Spider-Man is more of a nightmare than a hero, and it's shown in both the comics and the 1990s animated series. In the animated show, Man-Spider has some terrifying powers. He can spit acid and shoot webs from every limb without needing web shooters. His strength is even greater than Spider-Man's usual superhuman abilities. Though his mind regresses to something more animal-like, he still has some of Peter's memories, especially about his loved ones like Aunt May and Mary Jane. There are even moments where his hero instincts show, like when he stops Morbius from attacking Flash Thompson and Deborah Whitman. But when Man-Spider is hunted down by the Punisher, he becomes dangerously aggressive, almost killing him several times. His transformation into Man-Spider also comes with some confusing moments, like when he seems to recognize Flash and tries to say his name in a roar. When Peter finally returns to his regular Spider-Man form, it's clear his mind has slipped after 2 days in this monstrous state. Not only this, the comic version of Man-Spider doesn't have acid-spitting abilities, but still retains Peter's consciousness, even though he struggles with his animal instincts. He once asked Kazar to end his life, but luckily, Peter was turned back before things got that bad. It's a dark and terrifying look at what might happen if Spider-Man lost control of his spider side. Peter Parker, Patient Zero, Earth Quantum 11080. In one twisted universe, Spider-Man becomes the very thing he's always fought against, the cause of the apocalypse. It all starts when the Punisher accidentally releases a virus called Survivor 118, meant to help people survive in a post-apocalyptic world. But instead, it turns people into mindless, cannibalistic monsters. Spider-Man is the first to get infected. During a fight with the Rhino, Peter Parker, now infected, attacks and eats him on live television. This marks the moment when the world begins to spiral into chaos. As Spider-Man transforms, he becomes more predatory, craving human meat and losing the responsibility that once defined him. The Fantastic Four manage to subdue him and lock him away, but it's not long before his infection spreads, turning more of New York and the world into cannibalistic savages. As the plague spreads, the city begins to collapse, and Spider-Man, now known as Patient Zero, becomes the leader of a tribe in Manhattan. Also, the world is now a battleground for survival, with cannibal tribes fighting for control. Spider-Man's tribe clashes with another led by the King of Death, who kidnaps Mary Jane. Desperate to save her, Patient Zero turns to the Punisher for help, offering him information on other survivors in exchange for keeping his mate. The Punisher agrees, and after a brutal fight, he rescues Mary Jane. But even in this dark, twisted world, Patient Zero's battle for survival continues. Poison Parker, Earth 70134. In an alternate universe, Spider-Man faces a dark and twisted fate. After a brutal battle with Morlun, Peter Parker finds himself on the edge of death. Instead of being reborn as a hero, Peter rejects his chance at resurrection and stays in his cocoon, unknowingly opening the door for the Venom symbiote to take control. Sensing Peter's weakened state, the symbiote bonds with him and breaks down what's left of his mind, turning him into a monstrous new version of Spider-Man known as Poison. Now, let's talk power. Poison has all the powers of Spider-Man, but now with a deadly twist. His first act as this new creature is to break into Stark Tower, where he confronts his Aunt May and Mary Jane. He tries to convince Mary Jane that everything will be fine, even offering her the symbiote's power, but she rejects him. Poison, however, isn't fazed. He threatens to bring her back from the dead as a mindless creature, just like him. When Wolverine and Luke Cage try to stop him, Poison easily overpowers them, using his new abilities like a deadly stinger. Poison even goes so far as to resurrect Gwen Stacy using the symbiote, turning her into a terrifying creature. With his powers growing more assertive, Poison becomes an unstoppable force, leaving behind a trail of destruction as he searches for more people to join his symbiote army. Despite his terrifying new form, Poison still carries Peter's memories, love for Mary Jane, and twisted desire to share his gift with those around him. Peter Darkhold. In the twisted world of the Darkhold, Spider-Man, Peter Parker's most significant flaw, his sense of responsibility, reaches a terrifying extreme. After an event called the Unraveling begins destroying everything around him, Peter is left to hold the world together with his webs. But there's a catch. His webs dissolve after a few hours, meaning he has to keep re-webbing everything. This constant strain soon breaks him, and Peter loses his mind. Interestingly, the source of the madness is a dark magic called the Darkhold, which releases a virus across multiple universes, including Peter's. As cities crumble and people fall apart, Spider-Man's desperation grows. The once noble hero is now willing to do anything, even sacrificing others, to save his city. Unfortunately, tragedy strikes when Peter loses Gwen, his wife. Devastated and now entirely under the influence of the Darkhold, Peter makes a horrifying choice. He captures Reed Richards. He forces him to act as his physical web, holding everything together forever. Peter has wholly lost his moral compass, using Reed as a tool while torturing him in his pursuit of an impossible heroism. He even becomes cruel, chastising Reed for caring about his well-being and ultimately killing him when the webbing fails. In this story, Peter's struggle with responsibility becomes his downfall, turning him into a villain driven by fear and desperation. Zombie Spider-Man. Spider-Man becomes one of the most iconic and tragic zombies in the Marvel Zombies universe. It all begins with the Gospel of Hunger virus, which sweeps across Earth, turning heroes and civilians alike into zombies. Though they retain their ability to think and speak, the virus overwhelms them with an insatiable hunger for human flesh. For Peter Parker, this means the loss of his humanity. Unable to control his new cravings, Spider-Man gives in to the hunger and consumes his beloved Aunt May and Mary Jane. The guilt overwhelms him, but his monstrous instincts force him to continue, joining other infected heroes in a gruesome rampage across the universe. Well, Spider-Man, now part of a team of zombie heroes, helps devour beings like Galactus, growing stronger with each meal. Yet despite his monstrous form, his sense of responsibility as a hero never entirely disappears. Eventually, Peter's guilt takes over, and he turns against the other zombies, trying to stop the virus from spreading further across the multiverse. Though he's now a terrifying zombie, Spider-Man's inner conflict and struggle to resist his monstrous nature make him a tragic figure in this universe. The once heroic Peter Parker is now a force of destruction, trapped between his zombie instincts and his fading humanity. Spider-Man. Next one on the list is one of the monstrous versions of Spider-Man. Peter Parker becomes more terrifying in a twisted version of Spider-Man's story. Instead of being bitten by one radioactive spider, he falls into a vat filled with thousands. The spiders consume him, but something strange happens. They don't just devour him, they absorb his consciousness, becoming a single hive mind, and take on the identity of the man they consume. Now known as Spider-Man, this version of Peter wears a suit and continues to fight crime in the city, but it's far from the heroic Spider-Man we know. While he still has the same drive to protect others, he's a horrifying creature made entirely of spiders, all connected in one eerie collective mind. The spiders work together, using Peter's memories and instincts to mimic his movements and actions. But it's clear that this version of Spider-Man isn't quite human anymore. Let's rewind a bit. The story begins when Peter and Gwen Stacy tour Horizon Labs, where an experiment with radioactive spiders goes wrong. Peter falls into a massive colony of spiders, which consumes him entirely. But instead of dying, the spiders take over, forming a living hive that wears Peter's skin and keeps his sense of self alive. Spider-Man is both a tragic and terrifying version of Peter Parker, one driven by the same sense of justice but transformed into something unrecognizable and monstrous. The Thousand. Carl King, also known as the Thousand, is one of Spider-Man's most disturbing and dangerous foes. He started as a school bully who picked on Peter Parker. Still, his life turned twisted when he witnessed Peter's transformation into Spider-Man after being bitten by a radioactive spider. Desperate for the same powers, Carl tracked down the dead spider and ate it, hoping for a similar fate. But instead of gaining the abilities he craved, Carl's body started to break down, transforming into a swarm of spiders. Speaking of powers, this horrific change gave Carl incredible powers, allowing him to control 1,000 spiders that could invade and consume other people's bodies. Once he devoured someone, he could take control of their body, using it like a puppet, and continue his hunt for Spider-Man. The Thousand could make his puppets super strong and fast, often more potent than Spider-Man. His spiders even carried venom that could paralyze his victims, including Spider-Man, and his swarm was immune to Peter's spidey sense. Beyond this, the Thousand's abilities made him a terrifying opponent, but his power came with a cost. After he used a body, it was often too damaged to use again. His swarm also had a weakness in energy attacks like electric shocks, which could destroy the spiders and weaken him. Despite these weaknesses, the Thousand is one of Spider-Man's most horrifying enemies, using his twisted powers to terrorize those around him. Patton Parnel. Patton Parnel is one of the darkest versions of Spider-Man you'll ever come across. He started as a twisted version of Peter Parker, who embraced all the dark impulses Peter kept in check. Instead of using his powers for good, Patton used them to act on his worst instincts, turning him into a literal spider monster. His transformation was so horrific that he even consumed his father and nearly killed his girlfriend. If it hadn't been for Morlun, Patton would have gone on to become one of the most brutal serial killers in his world. On top of that, Patton's powers are chilling, with a spider-like physiology that allows him to change into a monster with fangs, venom, and 8 eyes. He also grew 4 arms and 4 legs, making him even more dangerous. His abilities included shooting organic webbing from his wrists and using his venom to impregnate his victims by biting them. His strength, wall-crawling skills, and ability to generate biological webbing made him a terrifying force to reckon with. Patton Parnell embodies what happens when Spider-Man lets his darker side take control. His actions were so monstrous that if he had not been stopped, he would have become a true nightmare, leaving behind a trail of destruction and death. Savage Spider-Man. In Non-Stop Spider-Man, Peter Parker faced one of his most monstrous transformations. While investigating a dangerous drug called A+ that was killing college students, Spider-Man got caught up in something far worse than he expected. The evil group Immaculatum, led by Baron Zemo, created a serum that enhanced physical abilities. When Zemo injected Spider-Man with it, things took a wild turn. The serum mutated Spider-Man's body, turning him into a massive, terrifying spider monster. Despite his monstrous form, Peter still retained part of his humanity. Zemo took control of him, using him as a weapon. However, the mutation didn't stop there. The A+ serum mutated again, and Spider-Man's intelligence increased, allowing him to break free from Zemo's control. With his newfound strength and smarts, Peter fought back, defeated Zemo and the Immaculatum, and finally rid himself of the dangerous drug. Further, the A+ serum, meant to enhance the brain, had an even darker effect on Spider-Man. While it worked as intended on humans, supercharging their brains until they burned out, it turned Spider-Man into something far more monstrous. With Doctor Strange's help, Peter was able to cure the side effects and restore order, but not before seeing just how far the serum could push someone into becoming a literal spider monster. Assassin Spider-Man. Finally, in What If, we meet a version of Peter Parker who took a dark turn in Spider-Man vs. Wolverine. Unlike Peter, whom we know refuses to kill, Peter made a choice that would shape him forever. After following Wolverine to Russia, Spider-Man accidentally kills Wolverine's friend, a woman trying to escape the KGB by taking her own life. The guilt from that moment haunted him, so he stayed with Wolverine and trained to become a deadly assassin. On Earth 8351, Spider-Man became one of the world's top Black Ops assassins, working alongside Wolverine. This version of Peter is brutal, no longer holding back in the face of danger. He left his old life, including his girlfriend Mary Jane, and ended up with a woman named Alex, who looks a lot like his lost love, Gwen Stacy. In the end, as a trained assassin, Spider-Man's powers are enhanced and refined. His agility, strength, and senses are pushed to the limit, making him nearly unstoppable. He can heal quickly, move faster than anyone else, and has a spider sense that warns him of danger before it happens. His combat skills are honed, and he's mastered marksmanship, making him a force to be reckoned with. This Spider-Man's journey is darker, showing how one choice can send him down a different path. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.